Nicole, reading your post, the first thing that came to mind was screening for the different populations of children, the adults, and the adolescent population. When we're talking about crises as a whole, crisis is something that is on a spectrum. An individual can be in and out of crisis constantly, depending on where they're at or how they respond to a particular disaster. So when we see kids, for example, a child experiencing a crisis, that crisis is compounded because now not only is a child experiencing the crisis, but the child is processing the crisis through the parents' lens of and their understanding what that particular disaster meant to their family and what that did to them and everything like that. So I was curious, uh, what type of screenings would you utilize in order to figure out what type of proper interventions to do with the different populations? So for myself, I know that when I used to work in the community, and whenever we would have a disaster or anything like that, we'd get a lot of referrals, and it would be, kids would come in. I implemented a policy that said, if I'm going to meet with a child, then I also want to meet with the parent. And the parent would be receiving counseling as well. And continue. So I would not accept any referral unless the parent agreed to counseling. And that way, I could focus a lot with the parent and really work on helping the parent to process and establish a safe environment for the child. And then from there, really see how the crisis or the disaster is affecting the child. And then it helped me to figure out, okay, what interventions would be effective for the child as I talked to the parent, because the parent really gave a lot of background that the child would not be able to give. And it helped me understand as a clinician, like, oh, okay, this is the type of environment that they live in. Okay, if I worked with this child on coping strategies, these are the type of coping strategies that would be reinforced naturally in the household, and they wouldn't be fighting that type of transition. Or, oh, the parent really isn't as active as they would I would like them to be, or that they need to be, really, to help the child process through a lot of that. And it was a completely different story when it came to adolescents. Adolescents, they are forging their own identity. Right? That talks about this a lot in the book, where he's like, in an adolescence, they are really starting to build themselves, and he extends adolescence all the way up to like 18, 19. Like I think the higher end was 19 years old. So you're forging your identity, you're trying to become your own person, you're trying to become your own being, and then from there, you're able to do it. So when I'm working with adolescents, it's more so a, well, this is something that you can try, and this is something that will help you build who you are, and the interventions are more geared towards that. Listen, if you want to be safe, here you go. If you want to continue to forge that intimacy where you get to know people on a more concrete basis to help you understand who you are, here you go. And what I've found is that teens respond well to that. They respond exceptionally well to that. Not so much that you're treating them as an adult, but you're helping guide them on their journey. And as a counselor, it's really cool because I don't have to ever give advice. I can just sit there and help them understand where they're at in their own journey and just illuminate that path for them that they've already chosen, facilitating that ride a little bit easier. And then for adults, it's a lot more processing, and for at least for me, the screenings that I've done with adults to figure out where they're at in their whole crisis on the crisis spectrum has been like this. I usually ask the question of like, how do you describe yourself right now? And based on how they answer that question will give me an idea where they're at. If they're describing themselves as, dejected, I feel like I have no worth. So, okay, yeah, you're very early on you're in the midst of crisis. We really should focus on these particular interventions. We really should focus on like putting things in place to help you move through those negative emotions or really work through those depressive symptoms. if they are more positive and upbeat in their problem solving, then my interventions will be more solution focused. So and will help build and push that. If they're more introspective and reflective, then naturally, again, the interventions will reflect that. So, kind of curious to know what kind of screenings you do or where you sit with these populations, stuff like that. I'm looking forward to hearing your response. Thanks.